Hey, class. So, we were throwing something of an audible today. So, I wanted to take care of some housekeeping matters with our last meeting. The first one is I wanted to finish the video about the precedents, the sources and precedents of American law. And then we're going to move on to some other topics in a series of videos that I'd like you to watch. There's a note-taking video, and then there's going to be another video about the differences between the state and national legal systems. There's two legal systems in America, and that's what we're going to focus on today in class. And then I have a web quest for you to tackle as homework. So first, let's finish up the video that we had started on Monday before Dr. Calentis jumped in and had his surprise hello right at the end of our class. Okay, so we were talking about this idea of the order of precedence of law in America. Basically, constitutional laws at the top, as interpreted by the national courts, then international treaties, like we discussed, and then national laws passed by the legislature, signed by the president, as interpreted by the national courts. So, and then, of course, national administrative rules and executive actions as interpreted by the national courts. So if you were to see a situation where there was a treaty requirement that conflicted with a national law, well, then you'd know that the treaty would supersede, the treaty provision would supersede the national law, because the treaty is at a higher level of precedence than the national law. Of course, the Constitution trumps everything, and then it goes down in order as shown on this screen. Now, of course, there's 50 states, and the 50 state constitutions, as interpreted by the national courts or that state's courts, would be supreme in that state, subject, of course, to conflicts with federal law, with national laws and the national courts. State constitution trumps state laws, and of course, also at the bottom of the pile would be state administrative rules and executive actions as interpreted by the court system. Again, just, so, of course, one more example, sorry. A national law would trump any, or if it conflicted with a state law, and the two were in conflict, would supersede a state law. Okay, so the next thing I want to point out to you is the difference between the federal and state legal systems. And this is an important distinction to remember because there's two legal systems in America. The national legal system that deals with national cases and controversies. So, a case that interprets a national law would be something subject to national courts, and of course the legislature makes those laws. Of course, constitutional issues. The U.S. Constitution might be an issue in a particular case. President Trump recently intimated, or posed at least on Twitter, wondering whether or not he could move the date of the election. And the answer to that question is clear. The U.S. Constitution, as amended by the 20th Amendment, so dictates when the election is going to be. There's a federal statute that names the date of every election of president, and thus a president could not move that date because it's set in law. Who could move the date if they chose? Well, the Congress could pass a law, and then a president could sign it to move the date. But there's also a constitutional provision written into the Constitution that says, hey, a new president has to be in office by January 20th of the year immediately following a presidential election. So the Constitution, as the defining, fundamental law, trumps everything else. So the law written by the national government has to be able to work within the confines of the constitutional provision. The president could not by himself make a change like that because he simply doesn't have the authority under the Constitution to do so. Now, the federal legal system also deals with conflicts between the states. So let's say there's a conflict between two states over riparian rights or water rights. This happens, uncommonly, but it happens more than you think. For example, who gets to use the water of a particular river? What if one state wants to build a dam, a hydroelectric dam, upriver from another state who uses that water source for agriculture? These are serious issues. These are big policy questions, and the national government decides those kind of cases. So the national government then considers considers issues involving federal laws and national cases and controversies. It deals with U.S. constitutional questions and then addresses conflicts between the states. What do the states do? Well, the states do everything else. They deal with state and local cases and controversies. That's virtually every criminal law in America, in all 50 states, all civil cases when people decide to sue each other, ordinance violations, that's when a local village's rules or law, and they're not laws, they're ordinances, are violated. They deal with issues involving state constitution matters. Most of the cases dealt with in America are state cases. Okay, so as of 2018, the number of national legal actions, criminal and civil combined, filed in the U.S. court system, in the national court system, 360,000 cases. That was in 2018. The number of state legal actions filed across the country, over 84 million in 2016. That should give you some idea of what the states do, and the answer is a lot. They do the vast majority of cases that are considered in our legal system. So, I want to conclude with that on these topics, and then I want to move to another thing that I'm going to describe in Google Classroom. It's a note-taking video that I'd like you to watch, because again, if you haven't watched it already, I'd like you to watch that note-taking video that I will post in Google Classroom, because I think it's important to consider how you are going to approach note-taking in a class. And some of you might not feel as strong in the skills of note-taking as others. If you feel like you're a strong note-taker, great. You don't need to watch the video. But if you are curious or you don't feel like you're that strong of a note-taker, I highly recommend watching the video. It's about 10, 11 minutes long, and maybe it'll help you a little bit. Okay? So, I bid you a fond farewell. I also have a web quest in Google Classroom that I'd like you to take a look at and work on, to be turned in on next time we see each other, I think, is Thursday. So turn that in, have it done as homework for Thursday. Okay? Thanks very much. See you guys then.